38-68, да. Навести.
Наведен, готов.
Да. Первый готов, наведен.
Цель 2105, прицел 419, 419.
Взрыватель осколочный.
Четвертый готов.
The war in Ukraine has in many ways turned into a battle of artillery. It would seem that after Desert Storm in Iraq and the Allied force in the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, there was no doubt that aviation could win wars. In fact, the ground forces only had to formally consolidate the results achieved by aviation. There is something slightly outdated, but still capable of dominating the battlefield, like a bodybuilder in a dystrophic ward. These are Soviet-Russian 2S7 Pion self-propelled guns of 203 mm caliber and 2S4 Tulpen self-propelled mortars of 240 mm caliber. The top of the food chain is the tyrannosaurs of their time. When creating these artillery systems, it was planned to obtain a firing range and the power of the ammunition, unattainable for smaller caliber artillery systems. For example, the firing range of an active rocket projectile from a 152 mm to a 36 cannon is just over 30 kilometers, while for a 2S7 Pion cannon it is already about 50 kilometers. At the same time, the massive explosive in a 203 mm caliber projectile is 2 to 3 times higher than in a 150-155 mm caliber projectile. And, of course, both the 2S7 Pion self-propelled gun and the 2S4 Tulpen self-propelled mortar can use special ammunition with a nuclear warhead. However, the firing range of the 2S4 Tulpen mortar, which is about 20 kilometers, makes this task risky. The disadvantages of the Peony and Tulip include their low mobility and low rate of fire, which is about 1,523 1.5 rounds per minute. This figure is not comparable with the capabilities of modern self-propelled guns of 150 to 155 mm caliber, capable of throw on enemy positions 10 shells. And their ammunition load is incomparable: 4 shells for the 2S7 Pion self-propelled gun, 8 shells for the modernized 2S7M Malka, and 50-60 shells for modern self-propelled guns of 150 to 155 mm caliber. The calculations of Pion and Tulip during combat work is outside, which means that they are not protected in any way from fragments of exploding ammunition and small arms bullets. To a 36 Hyacinth B, Soviet 152 mm towed gun. To a 36 refers to large caliber artillery and is designed to suppress and destroy enemy manpower, fire weapons and military equipment on the march, in places of concentration and in strong points. 333 shot. The F-59 active rocket projectiles used by the Hyacinth B can hit targets at ranges up to 33,500 meters. These characteristics are higher than, for example, the British S-90 self-propelled artillery mount or the American M777 variant, which have a range of 30,000 meters. In addition, the self-propelled guns can use shots with high-precision high-explosive fragmentation projectiles Krasnov hole and centimeter. These shots are designed to destroy armored vehicles, missile launchers, permanent defensive structures, bridges, crossings and other important point targets. In addition to conventional ammunition, shots with shells Chamomile, mint, aspect and symbolism with a nuclear warhead with a capacity of 0.1 to 2 kilotons of TNT were developed for the two S-5 Hyacinth S self-propelled guns. American military analyst Scott Ritter explained why you should not argue with the Russians and enter into a military confrontation with them. He proved his position with speaking numbers. Prime Minister of Poland Mateusz Morawiecki made a loud statement about Russia. He warned that 40 million Poles were ready to fight against Moscow in the event of a full-fledged war between the countries. According to him, Poland was a prisoner of Russia for many centuries and now it is a free country that rejects colonialism and imperialism. It was also reported that the United States may be preparing a Polish intervention in Ukraine. This statement was made by the famous Polish political scientist Konrad Rynax. The expert believes that in preparing the capture of the western part of Ukraine, the Americans will have to guarantee the assistance of the Kiev authorities in this division of its territories. If Polish troops enter the territory of Ukraine, the Russian army will crush them like a thin waffle. This opinion was expressed by the UN weapons inspector in Iraq, military analyst Scott Ritter. According to him, the Poles do not know how to fight with artillery, so their chances of winning are negligible. Scott Ritter notes that if Polish troops invade Ukraine, Russian troops will simply crush them. According to him, the Polish army is armed with old Soviet weapons and its ranks are mainly made up of poorly trained conscripts. A military expert says that modern warfare is impossible without artillery. He cites the US Operation Desert Storm as an example. Then the Americans fired 60,000 artillery shells, while the Russians fire 50,000 shells a day in Ukraine. The American analyst adds that NATO does not have powerful artillery in Europe. At the same time, most European armies simply do not know how to use it correctly. In his opinion, in the event of a war between Poland and Russia, the latter would not even have to use nuclear weapons. Because the Polish army will be destroyed right at the border, he said. And not a single American knows how to deal with this. Over the past 20 years, our entire army has been panicking when 1 or 2 mortar shells hit it. The Russians would fire 4,000 shells at our perimeter and it would cease to exist. Everything. Flat land, the expert emphasizes. Ritter recalls that when 12 missiles were fired at an American base in Iraq, many US soldiers were in shock. He wonders, what will happen if the Russians decide to raise the base to the ground and fire up to 100 rockets, and we are going to go against the Russians? No, the Polish army has no chance, zero, and they know it, sums up the analyst. Friends, subscribe to the channel, put likes. If you have an opposite opinion, write in the comments, we will understand. Everything that is said in the video is the personal opinion of the author and does not want to hurt anyone's feelings. In the next issue, we will talk about Russian aviation and tanks, and also want to touch on the topic of hypersonic missiles. We are also waiting for your comments on what topic you would like us to reveal in the next videos. See you later. Because the Polish army will be destroyed right at the border, he said.